Okay, great. Well, let's get started. Good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for episode 3 of Ahead of the Game, our new quarantine Field Hockey Canada webinar series. My name is Kevin Underhill. Today, we're going to take you off the pitch into the world of team management. And Celia Plottel is joining us today. Celia is the men's national team manager and has been since 2012. And she's going to impart some wisdom on team management and share some of her stories and career pathway in that regard. So it's obviously really exciting to have Celia on board. As always, we welcome questions. Just to give you some logistics for today, please feel free to write questions in the chat, the Zoom group chat. You can write them directly to me, or you can put them in the public box. It's either way is good, and I'll collect them and feed them to Celia as she does her presentation. So it lets her sort of keep going on her presentation and check in every now and then for questions. So if you haven't seen any of our other ones, they're archived on our YouTube channel and they're on our website as well. So feel free to check them out. Without further ado, I'll pass the torch over to Celia. Celia, take it away.
Yeah, hello. Thanks for joining me. For those that are in Vancouver, a special thank you, just because it's a gorgeous afternoon right now. But for everybody, thank you very much. Mine is not a role that usually gets showcased, and that's for a reason. I like to be in the background. I don't really like to be out front and center, like the athletes and coaches to shine. I've been working for Field Hockey Canada since about 2012, and my job title has more or less changed, but it always had manager behind it. Domestic manager, operations manager, tour manager. I think got a highfalutin, high performance operational manager at one point, but basically kind of looking after all the logistics off the field. Now, for those of you that have already seen Hugh and Patrick's webinars, mine is not going to be anything like a coach's. There's going to be no statistics. There's no videos. There's no goal scoring. But I do know that everybody that's on the call is probably passionate about sport like I am, and maybe a little bit competitive. So I've decided to make it a little bit competitive by sprinkling the presentation with fun facts. And you might want to keep track of the fun facts, because there might be a competition at the end to recall one of the fun facts, and there might be a prize given to the person who answers the quickest. Without further ado, I will get this started. Just let me share my screen. Sorry, guys, always a little bit awkward. Oh, and look at this. Here is the prize that you will win. This is hot off the press, Field Hockey Canada mask. So they're not made yet, but they should be within 5 business days, and we'll be sure to send the winner out with one of these masks. I don't think there's any boy or girl out there who, if you were to ask them when they were young what they wanted to do as a career, none of them would say, I want to be a team manager. So I kind of fell into it myself, probably like a lot of other people. Being a team manager is often a stepping stone for people who want to carry on in sport management and kind of start at the bottom. Some of them are frustrated, not very good athletes who get kind of stuck managing and picking up Kleenexes. I might kind of fall into that category. I'm not quite sure. But a lot of people get into it by volunteering or being an intern or doing a co-op. And for me, it was the volunteer route. I started when with the Hawks Club as a coach, when I had a very young daughter. She was 5. I carried on with the Hawks Club for many years, got on the board, and then Patrick Oswald, who some of you may know, in his great wisdom, realized that we needed to have in the club a paid volunteer, which is kind of what I called myself. So that was back in the day where there was a lot of paper registration, and my office was full of paper, unlike today, which is much more streamlined with online stuff. I carried on as the club administrator, and then that led to being invited to participate with Field Hockey Canada. To go back to how I got excited about field hockey, this is the first fun fact that I'm going to be presenting, and that was when I was 14, I played for Point Grey High School, which happened to be quite a good quality team back then, believe it or not, for those of you who are in the west side of Vancouver. And along came a coach when I was 14. So my first field hockey coach was somebody that many of you will know in the Canadian field hockey community, Shez Virgie. I was 14, he started coaching at the Point Grey High School, and he went on to coach me for many years. And here is a picture of Shez and me and some of my teammates from probably about early 1980. Shez, for those of you that don't know, went on to become a very important head coach for Canada. He coached the team for over 8 years. In the late 90s. He took them to World Cups and Olympic Games. He was also named as the World 11 coach, which is very prestigious. So he cut his teeth on me and my pals that are hanging out there with really bad hair and high-waisted skirts. Here's a fun fact, 1A, that's not going to be on the test, but is kind of a bit of a fun fact, and that is who is currently on the men's national team. Shez dated his mother for a very short time. And I'm going to give you the answer because I didn't write it down. It is Taylor Curran. Taylor Curran's mom and Shez dated for a very short time, Wendy Westmark. So there I am, cute little, I don't know, 18-year-old, and I carried on playing. I was never really good. I was a bit of a fringe player. I did get invited to a couple of national camps. Nobody really noticed me. Maybe they did, and that's why I wasn't noticed back. But I did go on and I played for UBC and UVic. But when I was 23, first time playing on turf, I blew my knee out, and it has not been the same, 3 surgeries. So I continued to do everything that I can to play, and I loved it. I carried on playing it. And I think that's what kind of binds us on this call all together. Nobody's going to learn about how to score a goal here, but it's the passion and the love of sport that I think keeps volunteers and managers doing what they do. And that certainly happened to me. It's how I define myself. It's how I see the world. I see the world in a beautiful pass that then leads on to a beautiful goal, a fabulous save. It kind of makes sense to me, that, and being on a team, and all the characters and the personalities that make up a team. It's a way that I can make sense of the world, and I think for a lot of people it's their passion and their drive and the reason why they get up in the morning. And for me, that certainly was what kept me going. I'm not going to encourage everybody to skip school to go straight to being a manager. I went to university for 9 years, and it was the volunteerism that got me going. But talking to some other managers of other national sport organizations, really truly, some of them have gone to business sport management school, but it's the actual internship and the actual kind of co-op when they're with a team or a national sport body that gets them very eager and keen about the sport and keeps them going. So if any of you, I don't know what audience I'm speaking to, it's either the old and the jaded like me or the young and the interested in being a manager, but if you truly are interested in being a manager, I highly recommend that you get an internship or start volunteering in a sport and just find out right from the grassroots how to get into it and what it encompasses. And I'm here to kind of show you a little bit of the less glamorous parts of being a manager today. And after I talk to you, maybe you don't want to do it, but I find it thrilling, and I really enjoy kind of propping up the athletes who are the stars. So I'm going to move on to my second fun fact, which is what national team coach convinced me to join Field Hockey Canada. So I was happily working for the Hawks Club. I felt like I had done absolutely everything that I could, and I was retiring. I had a big, huge, happy party. It was wonderful. I was retiring, and about 2 days later, this particular coach called me and asked me if I would like to participate as the manager of the national men's team. And the answer is Robin DiAbrio. I told him I would do it if I did not tour. There was absolutely no way I was going to tour with the team. I didn't know anything about international hockey. I'd been working in a club. I gave a special mention to Andrew Schouten, who is the guy wearing the Russian cap. This is a photo of him as a manager in 2009 with the men's national team as the manager. He was a different kind of a manager than I was, a little bit more out there, but he also was a big influence in getting me to be a manager. And his best advice to me when I first started was just pretend like you're new and you don't know what's going on and play the duh card, which worked for a little while. Robin was very patient with me. He taught me a lot about international hockey, the terms, the processes. He was very organized and an extremely passionate guy about field hockey and his players. And true to his promise, I did not tour with the team, which I was very happy about. So I'm going to move on to fun fact number 2. So fast forward a couple of years, Robin was the coach for only about 2 years, and Anthony Farry had been enlisted as the assistant coach. And Robin left the program and Anthony became the coach. And Anthony didn't have, because he was from Australia, did not have the same kind of depth of volunteers that Robin did, who was a Canadian and grew up in Canada. So Anthony convinced me. He's a very convincing player, or coach. He convinced me to go on a tour. And so the answer is Argentina. I went to Argentina. This is in 2012. This is the entry form back then. We can do it all online now, but this was an actual paper in 2012. And for those of you who know the team, you can kind of very interesting look at who happened to be on the team back then. It was a very fun tour. We ended up, it was kind of near the end of the year, and we had a little extra money, so we kind of splurged on a very fancy hotel, it was lots of fun. I don't remember much about the coffee. I do remember as I was pulling up these forms, I was looking at the budget and the reconciliation, and I was completely astounded and appalled at how much money the staff spent on coffee. I think that might even be true now, not sure. I haven't looked at the budgets recently. I should though. And one of the revelations for me of this tour was how expensive hotel laundry is. That's another little unglamorous part of the job that they don't tell you about, is that you're responsible for jersey laundry, which can take up a lot of time as a manager, trying to find the cheapest place to go. I splurged a couple of times in Argentina and had it done at great expense, but I ended up finding a little laundromat about a 3-block walk, and I ended up dragging the bag there and back. But After this tour, finding a good laundromat was one of the key questions I asked when I was going on a tour. Okay, fun fact number 4, if you're counting, is it's all about food. That's another thing about being a manager they never tell you about when you sign up, is you're responsible for getting food for the team. It's great at multi-sport games because it's all looked after, but often on tours, it's up to the manager. So what was one of my first of many humiliating experiences with food while I had on tour? Well, this was in the same year as Argentina, and it was at Brampton at the Pan Am Cup. We were playing as usual against all the Pan Am countries. We ended up playing against Argentina in the final. We were staying at a little kind of, it was called the Sheraton, not the Sheraton Hotel that you can think of, but the Sheraton College. And it was basically a place where kids stayed during their, well, think dormitory, that's exactly what it was. Oh, there we go. I should have pressed the fun fact earlier. But the humiliating food was spaghetti, and it was at Brampton. Here's the team, and you'll see me on the left standing next to Anthony. I always used to like to stand next to Anthony because he was short. And then you can actually see some other people that you might recognize still playing back from 2013. Okay, so the spaghetti story is, I've only told this to a few people, so, and I was only going to tell this story once all the people that are on the team had left the team, but you're going to get a sneak peek of it right now. I had to get the food, and there was a great pasta place that would hand off pasta to us when we would arrive home. It was big, huge tin foil containers of pasta and salad, and it was a perfect thing with some chicken, and we used to eat it in the common room. Well, there was often leftovers, and so after a few nights there were lots of pasta leftovers, and so I decided that I was just going to heat up the pasta and we would serve it. We would save some money by not getting another meal for that night. Well, where we were eating and where the kitchens were was up an elevator, and I had to put the tin foil big huge containers of pasta in a bunch of different ovens up and down the floors. And so I was running up and down, keeping it hot and on many floors. Well, one of the times that I went up, I grabbed the pasta. It was hot, everything was ready to go. The guys were waiting in the room, and I grabbed the pasta, and I'm in the elevator, and it was heavy and hot, so I was leaning it against the elevator. Sometimes there's a bit of a rim. I was leaning it against the rim, and lo and behold, the whole thing fell completely upside down. Well, nobody was in the elevator with me, so I just quickly scooped it all up and took it into the room, and everybody ate it and said that it was delicious. Just so you're not too yucked out by that, not too much of it fell, maybe about a quarter. It wasn't really all of it, but I did scoop some off the floor. And then the worst thing was I had to run back to clean it in the elevator, and took me a while to find the elevator that I'd actually been in. And it was highly embarrassing because there were people in the elevator when I finally found it. Anyway, food is definitely one of can be glamorous and can be unglamorous. I spend a lot of time organizing, buying, putting out, collecting, putting the leftovers back, food, and it can make or break a tour. Luckily, later on, I was able to convince a nutritionist to join us on our trips, and together she and I had many more humiliating experiences behind the scenes with food. Okay, next up is fun fact number 5, I believe. Just a couple more things about Brampton, because it was kind of near the beginning of my career. But I do recall that it was one of the first tours where I realized how passionate the staff and the players were about the sport. I mean, I'd come through the club system and always good enough was good enough. But to be around these players at such an important tournament and to be so emotional at the end of it. This is a tournament where if you, the Pan Am Cup, if you do well, you go on to the World Cup. You have to win. And as usual, the team was playing against Argentina in the final. We were tied 1-1 at the half and then lost 4-1, which was really a heartbreaker. And to see the emotion of the staff after, I realized the passion that had been built up. And I think it really helped the team kind of push forward after this and really not want to lose anymore. And there had been a lot of losing, and that was definitely something one of the coaches said to me. He hated losing and didn't want to lose anymore. So that was really quite a wonderful lesson for me. And then a couple of other lessons that I did learn at Brampton was that I don't know if any of you recall on the national scene, international scene, but there was a time where substituting used to include having a big, huge card with the player's number on of who you were going to be taking off. So the player that was going on had to hold on to a card and hold it up, and the player that was on the field needed to look over and come and take the card from the player that was coming on. Well, you can imagine that the actual taking of the card in a gentle, refined manner in the middle of a game did not happen. So the cards were flung all over the place, even sometimes landing on the TD's, the technical director's desk, still on the floor, getting stomped. So I spent a lot of my time until they thankfully got rid of the cards, organizing those things. They were really quite annoying. Now players can just go on and off as long as the numbers stay the same. And Canada in the past has been known for having too many players on the field. So we've instituted the player coming on has a penny and the player coming off grabs the penny, just so we can keep track of who's on the field and who's not. And the last thing that I learned in Brampton was in that final game when we were playing against Argentina, one of the jobs of the manager on the bench is to control the emotions of the players and the coaches. And even the most mild-mannered coaches can yell and scream when they feel that there's been an injustice. And I have to say, playing against Argentina, whose coaches are way more passionate than ours, was a dream, because the technical director and judges never came over to me and told me to tell our players to be quiet or hold their mouth. So quite a few lessons at Pan Am Cup for me. Okay, we're going on to fun fact number 5. Are there any questions as we go? You're welcome to send them on the chat, and Kevin's going to pass them on to me. Oh, here's a question, and I think I might have just answered it. What did you worry most about as a manager on the sideline of a big game? Well, many things, actually. The coach yelling and screaming. I have to be the buffer between the judges and the managers. Sometimes players would come off the field, and I don't think he minds me telling on him, but Mark Pearson is probably one of the most emotional and passionate players I've had on the side of the field. He would often come off the field and slam a stick, and one time in particular, he broke something by slamming a stick, and I got to have a little bit of a relationship with Mark around that. I would just go up to him and say, "Shake your head up and down, I'm admonishing you," just so that the judges would think that I was, but I wasn't the one delivering the message. I guess one of the other nightmares that can happen on the side of the field is something that actually happened to me several times. Forgetting to bring out the penalty corner gear from the change room. It was often a duty that a player needed to do, but sometimes in the excitement of a game, before they came on, the penalty corner gear would be in the change room. And the first penalty corner that our team would be called, there'd be no penalty corner gear behind the penalty, behind the goal. So I'd have to quickly run into the change room and grab it and take it to the back of the field. That was always really embarrassing, especially if it was a televised game. All right, we're moving on to fact number 5. What was my favorite tour location? So as I'm the tour manager, getting used to it, liking it, this probably was the most relaxing tour that I've ever been on, partly because of the location and partly because the team, this was really the tour for me where the team turned it around and started on their march to the Olympics. And the winner is Kuantan, Malaysia, Champions Challenge. Now this is a picture of the guys in a pre-game warm-up. They were so competitive they would even play games in the pool. But this was on the coastline, and we had an absolute beautiful beach. We were in the Hyatt Regency for some reason, and we had spectacular food. The laundry was free. I mean, for me, I even went and had a massage in the spa at this place. It was a lovely, beautiful place. But I think for me, one of the keys was that this was the first of one of the most thrilling sudden death overtime shootouts that Canada had against Malaysia. And in Malaysia, there's a lot of screaming, happy fans. And so to beat Malaysia in Malaysia in sudden death was such a thrill. And to walk around the hotel where all the teams were was a little bit kind of fun to be a kind of a winner. I have to say, it was a really fabulous place. The team was playing well. And just kind of one funny story I'll tell about Kuantan is the Malaysian press is just crazy. They can't get enough. They can't get enough of field hockey for some reason, and it's a big, huge event. While we were there, it was a big deal for us to beat Malaysia. And so Scott, who was the captain at the time, and Anthony were called into a press conference. And there's quite a few journalists there. I happened to be watching too. And Scott and Anthony went up to have their press conference. And one of the questions was, the fans back home must be absolutely thrilled with the way you're playing. What's it like back there? And Anthony, in his typical way, said, yes, there's great interest back home. And I think he was thinking about the parents and the fans of the players. As you know, we didn't get any coverage at all back home. It was not a big deal. Anyway, the team went on to lose against Korea in the final, which was a heartbreaker because they'd been playing so well. All right. We're moving on to fun fact number 6. Which player could not find their jersey right before a game at the Commonwealth Games? Scott Tupper, the captain. This is another glamorous part of the job that nobody ever tells you about, and that is you're responsible for the clothing. The players on our team, for whatever reason, they like to warm up without their playing jersey on. I don't know that there's any other team that does that, and I have no idea where that started with our team, but that's exactly what happens. So they go onto the field, they warm up, and then just before the national anthem, they put their shirt on and then walk out. Scott is probably one of the most organized people I know. He always has it together, absolutely no issues. But this particular day, he was coming out to do his warm-up. He had his bag over his shoulder, and someone asked for his autograph. And I saw him stuff his shirt in his bag. He was carrying it. I think he was going to put it on the bench, but he was carrying it. And so he had his warm up, and then with 5 minutes to go, he was looking around for his shirt. He was tearing everything out of his bag. He could not find his shirt. That meant that he couldn't go on the field. So one of the jobs as a manager is you have to have extra shirts on the bench, and you put tape numbers on anyone who either they get blood on their jersey and they can't wear it anymore because it's unsafe, or something like Scott, they forget their jersey. So there I am, and I think the physio at the time was trying to help me, and it was humid. We're in Glasgow, and struggling to put the number on. Scott had torn his bag apart. He swore there's only one place he would ever put it. And then we're struggling to get the tape. It's hot. It was a nightmare. The captain's not on the team, on the field. It was but finally he remembered, and I think he went in with about 2 minutes after the game began. He finally remembered where it was, and because he'd been asked for an autograph, he hadn't put his jersey in the typical pocket that he normally does. Anyways, that was a little bit of a flurry. Okay. We're going to move on to fun fact number 7. Oh, here's a picture of Glasgow for those of you who were thinking what else went on in Glasgow. That was Commonwealth Games was lovely. Can't remember any of the results, I'm sorry to say. Okay, here's fun fact number 7. Who was the only person to go to the hospital at the 2013 World League 2 in San Diego? Now I'm going to say a little bit about hospitals, because that, again, as a manager, is one of those unglamorous jobs that they forget to tell you about when you sign up to be a manager, and that is you're usually the person that goes to the hospital with the injured player. So I have been to hospitals all over the world and seen some appalling things, and also seen some unbelievable medical services. It's really quite interesting to see the medical world and how it exists. Usually foreigners were treated exceptionally, which in some places felt really awkward, jumping the queue, and other times we were just right at the back of the line with everybody else, and it took a really long time. So the answer to this question was me. This is a picture of the team after they qualified to go on to the next level at World League 3. But in my kind of enthusiasm of getting food for the players, I stabbed myself in my hand while trying to take a pit out of an avocado. I ended up going to the hospital and quite badly injuring my hand, and I still to this day do not have feeling in a part of my finger. So that was most humiliating. But this is the best for me. This picture is the best part of playing. This is the team qualifying. They're holding up. Some people are holding up at 3. Oh, I think they're holding up at 3 because they're going to World League 3, and some people are holding up at 2 because we came second in the tournament, which means that we got to go on to the next level. Okay. Moving on to fun fact number 8, for those of you that are counting. You can read the question, but just somebody's asked a question: are there good resources for team managers out there, either Field Hockey Canada or FIH or otherwise? Or is it mostly learn as you go? Yes, there are lots of places where you can get resources. Whoever sent that question, happy to answer that a little bit more fulsome if you want by sending me an email, which will be at the end of the presentation. The COC, the Canadian Olympic Committee, has lots of great resources. The FIH, our international body, has some great resources. And if you're a Canadian, I'm happy to share my resources with you too. So just maybe send that question to me, to my email, which will be at the end. All right, so which swear word did which person use during the shootout of World League 3 quarterfinals? This was the tournament that would determine if you came in the top 4. It was about a 92% percentage that you would go on to the Olympics. So the quarterfinals was pretty important because then you would be one of the 4 teams going on to World League 4, which is a very prestigious tournament. And you would have almost a shoe-in to go to the Rio Olympics. So this was big, important stuff. Well, it was Scott Tupper who actually used the worst word that you can right in the throes of the sudden death procedure. And he apologized even before he said the word to me. Captain Canada, the most revered person on the team, and probably, as I was saying earlier, the calmest, the coolest. He had missed 2 of his shootouts, and we were on to the sudden death. And I went up to him and I said, Scott, you need to calm yourself. You might have to go again. And so the poor guy was pretty emotional and said that to me, which he still apologizes to me now. 5 years after. And I also have a fun fact, 8A, which again is not on the exam, and that is on the way home from the game where they won the shootout against New Zealand. We were in the bus, and I'd never heard a group of grown men sing a song like this before. So the fun fact is, what song did they sing in the bus on the way home? And it was Carly Rae Jepsen's Call Me Maybe. It was quite a thrill for me, I have to say. All right, so we're gonna do something a little bit different, and I'm going to say a little bit about Anthony Farry. So as a manager, my boss is the coach, the head coach. I'd had Robin for only a couple of years, and by now, going into Argentina in the Olympics, Anthony had been the coach for about 3 years. Anthony was a very hardworking, somewhat tough and gruff Australian, but he was probably one of the most principled and trustworthy people and truth-speaking person that I'd ever worked for. He had a great sense of humor, and he expected a lot. And as a manager, I think you need to learn. You need to learn how to work with the person who's kind of telling you what to do. And it's a little bit of psychology, trying to figure out what they want and when they want. And one of the things that I realized about Anthony is he was could be kind of excitable sometimes and wanted things done right then, right now. And I never told him this, and I don't know if he's listening, but I learned how to, when he would want something in a big huffy hurry, not to do it right away, because he would usually change his mind. So I would kind of give him a couple of days and then ask him if he really truly did want me to carry on with whatever crazy project that he wanted to do. He did teach me patience because of it, and I think that's kind of helped me a little bit along the way. But one of the most complimentary, nicest things that he ever said to me was that the team was going on a tour to Chile, and it was during a time where we didn't have a lot of money, so he decided that they weren't going to take a manager. So Anthony and Paul Bundy, who was the assistant coach at the time, and the AT went off to Chile with no manager, and they were being hosted. It was not a tournament, it was just a tour playing against Chile. And apparently it was a little rough. And he said to me when he got back, the chances of going on a tour without a manager ever again is 0. So I took that as an Anthony Farry compliment. So thank you, Anthony. All right, fun fact number 9. What was the worst but most memorable tour that I ever went on? This is easy. Cape Town, South Africa. So the team had qualified for the Olympics, and we went to South Africa in January of the Olympic year, 2016. And again, we didn't really have a lot of money, so we found a place in South Africa to stay for 3 weeks, which was basically a dormitory, a youth hostel. This picture is actually the nicest room in the whole place. We battled, here's some more pictures from the tour, just to kind of keep you interested while I'm babbling on. One of the good news is that nobody had to sleep on a top bunk, which was actually kind of a good thing because it was pretty cramped quarters. But the bad things kind of outweighed it, and some of them were that there was no AC, there was no air conditioning. There was a window that fell out of the kitchen. We had some money stolen from our rooms. There was no Wi-Fi, so that was kind of interesting. It was the first time I'd seen the cards and games come out, which in the end actually ended up being a good thing. The stove stayed on, so the kitchen was about 1,000 degrees, and the best part of it was that there were maggots. Anyways, what we believe happened after this tour, it did kind of bring the guys a little bit closer. It was a tough tour. They were working and running and playing a lot of games. And you can see in the top right-hand corner, true to the whole tour, we went on a shark sighting tour trip. And for the first time ever, the shark boat did not find any sharks. So the trip was really, truly doomed, but it was a hard-working tour, and everybody, all the staff worked really hard, as did the guys who even helped peel carrots and try to burn steak on the barbecue. Okay, I've got another question, but I'm going to carry on just for a second. Okay, the first and only Olympics I've ever been to is the Rio Olympics, and that was a thrill. Being a manager, going to a multi-sport game is one of the most thrilling things because there's so much support, especially from our Canadian Olympic Committee. There's a whole mission team that helps look after logistics that I normally would be looking after. The travel, there's food all the time, the transportation is looked after, the laundry that I had mentioned earlier. It's always very easy, and it makes it very easy to be a manager and for the players just to concentrate on playing. Rio was a little bit of a difficult place for field hockey. It was the stadium was in an area that had been repurposed for just field hockey, so it just kind of sprung out of nowhere, and there was real hope that there would be more field hockey in Brazil after, but unfortunately that didn't happen. And our team did quite well. I think they finished where they entered, which was the best or the worst they could do. But I truly love Pan Am Games, Glasgow Commonwealth Games, Australia Commonwealth Games. They're the real plum of being a manager, and also being on a multi-sport game. A lot of times as a manager, you feel like you're living in a silo when you're just kind of by yourself on tour, but to be with all the other teams, the Canadian teams and the managers, it's kind of fun to meet people that have the same issues that you have, and there's lots of exchange of ideas and information. So I've really enjoyed the multi-sport games, and for me, such a thrill to be part of the players. They're living their dream. They're at the Olympics. So that was a real thrill for me. Okay, fun fact number 11. In what city did the team earn the right to go to the World Cup? And that was London. This is a picture of Taylor and Keegan. I think Keegan just scored an amazing goal against China in this. This again was an easy tour. I'm getting smarter as I go along, and we ended up staying in a pretty nice hotel. and we were within walking distance of the stadium. It was a thrill to play in the Lee Valley Stadium because it had held the 2012 Olympics. The stadium was spectacular. This was a really nice tour. And not only that, the guys qualified, oops, I went too early, qualified for the World Cup. And I was just going to say the other thing that happened this year is we got these two great members of the team. Greg Clark on the right is a South African, and it's lovely to have him on the team. He's got great South African slang, and he's a very experienced coach, and I think he added a huge amount to the players' success during this early part of him being with the team. Guy Robertson on the left was the physiotherapist that was with the team at the time, and he and I have to work quite closely together. He looks after the players, and I look after the food, the laundry, the travel, the hotel. And I'm just going to say a little bit about Paul, who after Anthony left, which was in 2017, Anthony has gone on to coach the Japanese women's national team. Paul took over as head coach, and he again helped me become a better manager by being a really good mentor. He's a very great leader. He gets the best out of people, and he makes you feel like you want to produce the best work. And I think that our team, the professionalism of the team was on an upward trajectory from Rob and Anthony, and it kind of culminated with Paul, who brought it all together, and very principled, very hardworking. And what I learned most from Paul, I think, is to be the most organized before you possibly can, and not fly by the seat of your pants, which is what I'd been doing a lot before he came along. Okay, we're kind of getting to the end. I've got two more fun facts. Next one is my biggest thrill while not with the team, and that was easy. That was recently. This is the current team that travels with the team, or was the staff that traveled with the team for the semifinals in Malaysia. It was the first time the team had won at a important tournament, and this got them onto be in the qualifier, which the people in this picture are Greg, Kelly Vanry, who is now the touring manager. I no longer tour with the team, and Kelly is just excellent, doing an excellent job. There is Guy and Hugh Purvis, who was the video analyst at this tour, is now the next gen pathway coach for the junior team. And there's Paul. So the thrill was for me that they called from the change room after they won, and they really made me feel like I was part of the success, even though I wasn't there. And I have to say I did a lot of hands over my eyes watching the games, because they were very thrilling, especially the game against China. Anyway, that's the crew. And this is the team. They, at this particular tournament, meant that they went on to qualify for the Olympics. So last fun fact is the biggest thrill while with the team and not on the field with the team. And for those of you that are in Vancouver or have been were at last October's World Cup Olympic qualifier, that was quite a thrill, and the team did qualify to go to the Olympics. So that was quite a thrill. I'm kind of at the end here. There's a question that's come through. You've mentioned a lot of aspects of your role. If you had to boil it down to what's the 1-2 things you would identify as the most important role of the team manager? Probably to be organized and to be respectful. Really, truly, one of the best skill sets I have probably is the fact that I raised 3 kids. A lot of the guys on the team are my kids' age, and I expect them to be their best, but they've all got their own little picadillos, and you have to kind of figure out what players need a little bit more support and what are happier on their own, and just kind of thinking ahead. I think that's more than 2 or 3 aspects. I think being organized, asking questions, and being respectful, probably I would boil it down to those things. You're not going to know everything the first tour you go on, so you need to ask a lot of questions. Somebody's asked if they want to be the manager for the Canadian national team. What steps do I take? Is there a pathway? Just send me your name. We've got lots of opportunity for you to be a manager, especially we'd probably start someone fresh off with the juniors. There'd be a lot of mentoring. I'd be happy to mentor. Kelly, who is the current touring manager, would be happy to mentor. We have operation manuals. I think the best thing to do would be to contact us. Let us know what your qualifications are. Start you off on a little tour just to kind of get to know what your strengths and weaknesses are. Nobody can do it all. You just have to kind of figure out what works for you and what doesn't. That's the best that I could say about that. So we've reached kind of near the end, so we are going to have our competition now. Feel free to send more questions. I'm happy to, we have a few more minutes for me to answer if you want to. But just to get ready to answer the question, I want everybody to go to their chat box, and there's a little drop-down box where it has all of the names of the people who are on the chat. Make sure you press Kevin Underhill. He was the host if anybody was late to the start. Kevin is our communication director. So make sure you've got Kevin queued up, because it's going to be first person to answer the fun fact. Fun fact number 3. What was my first tour that I went on? Kevin's going to receive the answer. Press away, type and press away. Kevin's going to answer answer all the chat answers and let me know who the winner is. I can't thank you enough for coming and listening in on kind of the behind the scenes of what it takes to be a manager and the glamorous ups and downs. And I do have one more question here. Sounds like lots of ups and downs on tours. Are you happy you took the risk and started touring? Yes, of course. I've enjoyed every minute of it. There are lots of highs and there are lots of lows. And it's for me a thrill to be able to help people reach their dream. Really, I'm there to support, to do everything that I possibly can off the field. It's up to the players to do, and the coaches to do whatever they can to get them to the way that the highest level that they possibly can. And what a thrill. I mean, you can just see Adam's face. What a thrill. This was the 2nd time he scored in shootout to get the team to the Olympics. And what a thrill to have devoted so much of your life to a dream and to reach the top. And I'm happy to be kind of behind the scenes to help them get to that. Okay. Okay, the winner is Roel van Maastricht. Well done. Jan Hoekendubler gets an honorable mention for answering 5 seconds after Roel. So maybe we might just have to send you both a mask. If each of you could please put in your address to Kevin in the chat box, we'll send those out to you in the next week or 2. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for listening in. And my email address is right there. especially for the person who wants to be a touring manager, feel free to contact me. Thanks again.
Awesome, Celia. Thank you so much. That was such a fun ride. Definitely a different feel from the first two presentations that we had that were a bit more nuts and bolts on the field. This one was a bit more off the field story time, and I thought it was amazing and super entertaining and educational. So appreciate that a lot. So I think everyone really enjoyed it. We'll archive, just for everyone's sake, we'll archive the presentation. We'll put it up on our website in the next few days or early next week. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us, and look forward to next week. We actually have Rule on, who maybe will be sporting his new mask. So thanks very much to everyone, and we'll see you next week.